I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 53.1. Questioner: I would first like to ask what is the instrument's condition and then ask 2 questions for her. She would like to know if she can now do 1 exercise period per day, and also is the pain she feels prior to doing a session due to an Orion attack. Answer: I am Ra. The instrument's condition is as previously stated. In answer to the question of exercise, now that the intensive period is over, this instrument may, if it chooses, exercise 1 period rather than 2. In scanning this instrument's physical complex distortions, we find the current period of exercise at the limit of this instrument's strength. This is well in the long run due to a cumulative building up of the vital energies. In the short run it is wearying to this entity. Thus we suggest the entity be aware of our previous admonitions regarding other aids to appropriate bodily distortions. In answer to the second query, we may say that the physical complex difficulties prior to contact with our social memory complex are due to the action of the subconscious will of the instrument. This will is extremely strong and requires the mind, body, spirit complex to reserve all available physical and vital energies for the contact. Thus the discomforts are experienced due to the dramatic distortion towards physical weakness while this energy is diverted. The entity is, it may be noted, also under psychic attack, and this intensifies pre-existing conditions and is responsible for the cramping and the dizziness as well as mind complex distortions. Question 53.2. Questioner: Thank you. I would like to know if name may attend 1 of these sessions in the very near future. Answer: I am Ra. The mind, body, spirit complex, name, belongs with this group in the spirit and is welcome. You may request that special meditative periods be set aside until the entity sits with this working. We might suggest that a photograph of the one known as name be sent to this entity with his writing upon it indicating love and light. This held while meditating will bring the entity into peaceful harmony with each of you so that there be no extraneous waste of energy while greetings are exchanged between 2 entities, both of whom have a distortion towards solitude and shyness, as you would call it. The same might be done with a photograph of the entity, name, for the one known as name. Question 53.3. Questioner: Thank you. During my trip to Lamy, certain things became apparent to me with respect to dissemination of the first book of the Law of One to those who have had experiences with UFOs and other wanderers, and I will have to ask some questions now that I may have to include in Book 1 to eliminate a misunderstanding that I am perceiving as a possibility in Book 1. Therefore, these questions, although for the most part transient, are aimed at eliminating certain distortions with respect to the understanding of the material in Book 1. I hope that I am using the correct approach here. You may not be able to answer some of them, but that's all right. We'll just go on to others then if you can't answer the ones I ask. First, I will ask if you could tell me the affiliation of the entities who contacted Betty Andreasen. Answer: I am Ra. This query is marginal. We will make the concession towards information with some loss of polarity due to free will being abridged. We request that questions of this nature be kept to a minimum. The entities in this and some other vividly remembered cases are those who, feeling the need to plant Confederation imagery in such a way as not to abrogate free will, use the symbols of death, resurrection, love, and peace as a means of creating, upon the thought level, the time-space illusion of a systematic train of events which give the message of love and hope. This type of contact is chosen by careful consideration of Confederation members which are contacting an entity of like home vibration, if you will. This project then goes before the Council of Saturn and, if approved, is completed. The characteristics of this type of contact include the non-painful nature of thoughts experienced and the message content which speaks not of doom but of the new dawning age. Question 53.4. Questioner: it is not necessary that I include the information that you just gave in the book to accomplish my purpose. In order to save your polarity, shall we say, I can keep that as private material if you wish. Do you wish for me to keep it unpublished? Answer: I am Ra. That which we offer you is freely given and subject only to your discretion. Question 53.5. Questioner: I thought you would say that. In that case, can you tell me anything of that blue book mentioned by Betty Andreasson in that case? Answer: I am Ra. No. Question 53.6. Questioner: thank you. Can you tell me of the various techniques used by the service to others positively oriented Confederation contacts with the people of this planet, the various forms and techniques of making contact? Answer: I am Ra. We could. Question 53.7. Questioner: would you do this please? Answer: I am Ra. The most efficient mode of contact is that which you experience at this space-time. The infringement upon free will is greatly undesired. Therefore, those entities which are wanderers upon your plane of illusion will be the only subjects for the thought projections which make up the so-called close encounters and meetings between positively oriented social memory complexes and wanderers. Question 53.8. Questioner: could you give me an example of one of these meetings between a social memory complex and a wanderer as to what the wanderer would experience? Answer: I am Ra. One such example of which you are familiar is that of the one known as Maurice. 1. In this case the previous contact which other entities in this entity circle of friends experienced was negatively oriented. However, you will recall that the entity, Maurice, was impervious to this contact and could not see, with the physical optical apparatus, this contact. However, the inner voice alerted the one known as Maurice to go by itself to another place, and there an entity with the thought form, shape and appearance of the other contact appeared and gazed at this entity, thus awakening in it the desire to seek the truth of this occurrence and of the experiences of its incarnation in general. The feeling of being awakened or activated is the goal of this type of contact. The duration and imagery used varies depending upon the subconscious expectations of the wanderer which is experiencing this opportunity for activation. 1. This refers to case number 1 in Secrets of the UFO by D.T. Elkins with Carla L. Rueckert, Louisville, Chi. LL Research, 1976, p. 10-11. Question 53.9. Questioner: in a close encounter by a Confederation type of craft, I am assuming that this close encounter is with a thought form type of craft. Have wanderers within the past few years had close encounters with landed thought form type of craft? Answer: I am Ra. This has occurred, although it is much less common than the Orion type of so-called close encounter. We may note that in a universe of unending unity the concept of a close encounter is humorous, for are not all encounters of a nature of self with self? Therefore, how can any encounter be less than very, very close? Question 53.10. Questioner: well, talking about this type of encounter of self to self, have any wanderers of a positive polarization ever had a so-called close encounter with the Orion or negatively oriented polarization? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 53.11. Questioner: why does this occur? Answer: I am Ra. When it occurs, it is quite rare and occurs either due to the Orion entity's lack of perception of the depth of positivity to be encountered, or due to the Orion entity's desire to, shall we say, attempt to remove this positivity from this plane of existence. Orion tactics normally are those which choose the simple distortions of mind which indicate less mental and spiritual complex activity. Question 53.12. Questioner: I have become aware of a very large variation in the contact with individuals. Could you give me general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they contact? Answer: I am Ra. The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which is meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you are aware. Question 53.13. Questioner: what about the physical examination syndrome? How does that relate to wanderers and Confederation and Orion contacts? Answer: I am Ra. The subconscious expectations of entities cause the nature and detail of thought form experience offered by Confederation thought form entities. Thus, if a wanderer expects a physical examination, it will perforce be experienced with as little distortion towards alarm or discomfort as is allowable by the nature of the expectations of the subconscious distortions of the wanderer. Question 53.14. Questioner: well, are those who are taken on both Confederation and Orion craft then experiencing a seeming physical examination? Answer: I am Ra. Your query indicates incorrect thinking. The Orion group uses the physical examination as a means of terrifying the individual and causing it to feel the feelings of an advanced second density being such as a laboratory animal. The sexual experience is of some other subtype of this experience. The intent is to demonstrate the control of the Orion entities over the Terran inhabitant. The thought form experiences are subjective and, for the most part, do not occur in this density. Question 53.15. Questioner: then both Confederation and Orion contacts are being made and close encounters are of a dual nature as I understand it. They can either be of the Confederation or of the Orion type of contact. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct, although the preponderance of contacts is Orion-oriented. Question 53.16. Questioner: well, we have a large spectrum of entities on Earth with respect to harvestability, both positively oriented and negatively oriented. Would the Orion group target in on the ends of this spectrum, both positively and negatively oriented, for contact with Earth entities? Answer: I am Ra. This query is somewhat difficult to accurately answer. However, we shall attempt to do so. The most typical approach of Orion entities is to choose what you might call the weaker-minded entity that it might suggest the greater amount of Orion philosophy to be disseminated. Some few Orion entities are called by more highly polarized negative entities of your space-time nexus. In this case they share information just as we are now doing. However, this is a risk for the Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities then attempt to bid and order the Orion contact just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. The resulting struggle for mastery, if lost, is damaging to the polarity of the Orion group. Similarly, a mistaken Orion contact with highly polarized positive entities can wreak havoc with Orion troops unless these crusaders are able to depolarize the entity mistakenly contacted. This occurrence is almost unheard of. Therefore, the Orion group prefers to make physical contact only with the weaker-minded entity. Question 53.17. Questioner: then in general we could say that if an individual has a close encounter with a UFO or any other type experience that seems to be UFO-related, he must look to the heart of the encounter and the effect upon him to determine whether it was Orion or Confederation contact. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. If there is fear and doom, the contact was quite likely of a negative nature. If the result is hope, friendly feelings, and the awakening of a positive feeling of purposeful service to others, the marks of Confederation contact are evident. Question 53.18. Questioner: thank you. I did not wish to create the wrong impression with the material that we are including in Book 1. I may find it necessary to add some of this material. As I say, I know that it is transient, but I believe it is necessary for a full understanding, or, shall I say, a correct approach to the material. I'll ask a few questions here, but if you do not care to answer them, we'll save them. I would like to ask, however, if you can tell me what, for the most part, the Confederation entities looked like? Answer: I am Ra. The fourth density Confederation entity looks variously depending upon the, shall we say, derivation of its physical vehicle. Question 53.19. Questioner: do some of them look just like us? Could they pass for Earth people? Answer: I am Ra. Those of this nature are most often fifth density. Question 53.20. Questioner: I assume that the same answer would apply to the Orion group. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 53.21. Questioner: can you tell me why name has so many silver flecks on her? Answer: I am Ra. This is infringement. No. Question 53.22. Questioner: thank you. Can you tell me why I got sick during Karl Raschke's talk? Answer: I am Ra. We scan your thoughts. They are correct, and therefore we do not infringe by confirming them. The space-time of your allotted speaking was drawing near, and you came under Orion attack due to the great desire of some positively oriented entities to become aware of the law of one. This may be expected, especially when you are not in a group lending strength to each other. Question 53.23. Questioner: thank you. Can you comment on Maya and the instruments, if she approves so-called ball of lightning experiences as a child? Answer: I am Ra. This will be the last query of this working. You were being visited by your people to be wished well. Is there any other query of a brief nature we may answer? Question 53.24. Questioner: I apologize for asking many transient questions during this session. I felt it necessary to include some of this material so that those wanderers and others reading the first book of the Law of One would not get the wrong impression with respect to their experiences and contacts. I am sorry for any problems that I might have caused. I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to aid the contact or to aid the instrument. Answer: I am Ra. The instrument is well. Please guard your alignments carefully. We leave you now, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 54.1. Questioner: first, I would like to ask of the instrument's condition. Answer: I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Question 54.2. Questioner: I have a question from Jim about an experience which he had when he first moved to his land, in which he was told, the key to your survival comes indirect, through nervousness. The entity was Angelica. Could you give him information with respect to this? Answer: I am Ra. Yes. Question 54.3. Questioner: would you please do that? Answer: I am Ra. As we have noted, each mind, body, spirit complex has several guides available to it. The persona of two of these guides is the polarity of male and female. The third is androgynous and represents a more unified conceptualization faculty. The guide speaking as sound vibration complex, Angelica, was the female polarized persona. The message may not be fully explicated due to the law of confusion. We may suggest that in order to progress, a state of some dissatisfaction will be present, thus giving the entity the stimulus for further seeking. This dissatisfaction, nervousness, or angst, if you will, is not of itself useful. Thus its use is indirect. Question 54.4. Questioner, I would like to trace the energy that I assume comes from the Logos. I will make a statement and let you correct me and expand on my concept. From the Logos comes all frequencies of radiation of light. These frequencies of radiation make up all of the densities of experience that are created by that Logos. I am assuming that the planetary system of our Sun, in all of its densities, is the total of the experience created by our Sun as a Logos. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 54.5. Questioner, I am assuming that the different frequencies are separated, as we have said, into the 7 colors, and I am assuming that each of these colors may be the basic frequency for a sub-Logos of our Sun Logos, and that a sub-Logos, or, shall we say, an individual may activate any one of these basic frequencies or colors and use the body that was generated from the activation of the frequency or color. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. If we grasp your query correctly, this is not correct in that the sub-Logos resides, not in dimensionalities, but only in co-creators, or mind, body, spirit complexes. Question 54.6. Questioner, what I meant was that a mind, body, spirit complex can then have any body activated that has one of the 7 rays. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct in the same sense as it is correct to state that anyone may play a complex instrument which develops a euphonious harmonic vibration complex such as your piano, and can play this so well that it might offer concerts to the public, as you would say. In other words, although it is true that each true color vehicle is available potentially, there is skill and discipline needed in order to avail the self of the more advanced or lighter vehicles. Question 54.7. Questioner, I have made these statements to get to the basic question which I wish to ask. It is a difficult question to ask. We have, coming from the sub-Logos we call our Sun, intelligent energy. This intelligent energy is somehow modulated or distorted so that it ends up as a mind, body, spirit complex with certain distortions of personality which are necessary for the mind, body, spirit complex or mental portion of that complex to undistort in order to conform once more with the original intelligent energy. First, I want to know if my statement on that is correct, and, secondly, I want to know why this is the way that it is, and if there is any answer other than the first distortion of the law of one for this. Answer, I am Ra. This statement is substantially correct. If you will penetrate the nature of the first distortion and its application of self-knowing self, you may begin to distinguish the hallmark of an infinite creator, variety. Were there no potentials for misunderstanding and, therefore, understanding, there would be no experience. Question 54.8. Questioner, okay, once a mind, body, spirit complex becomes aware of this process, it then decides that in order to have the full abilities of the creator it is necessary to reharmonize its thinking with the original creative thought in precise vibration or frequency of vibration. In order to do this it is necessary to discipline the personality so that it precisely conforms to the original thought, and this is broken into 7 areas of discipline, each corresponding to one of the colors of the spectrum. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This statement, though correct, bears great potential for being misunderstood. The precision with which each energy center matches the original thought lies not in the systematic placement of each energy nexus, but rather in the fluid and plastic placement of the balanced blending of these energy centers in such a way that intelligent energy is able to channel itself with minimal distortion. The mind, body, spirit complex is not a machine. It is rather what you might call a toned poem. Question 54.9. Questioner, do all mind, body, spirit complexes in the entire creation have 7 energy centers? Answer, I am Ra. These energy centers are in potential in macrocosm from the beginning of creation by the Logos. Coming out of timelessness, all is prepared. This is so with the infinite creation. Question 54.10. Questioner, then I will assume that the Creator in its intelligent appraisal of the ways of knowing itself, created the concept of the 7 areas of knowing. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is partially incorrect. The Logos creates light. The nature of this light thus creates the nature of the catalytic and energetic levels of experience in the creation. Thus it has that the highest of all honor duties, but given to those of the next octave, is the supervision of light in its manifestations during the experiential times, if you will, of your cycles. Question 54.11. Questioner, I will make another statement. The mind-body-spirit complex may choose, because of the first distortion, the mental configuration that is sufficiently displaced from the configuration of the intelligent energy in a particular frequency or color of in-streaming energy so as to block a portion of in-streaming energy in that particular frequency or color. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 54.12. Questioner, can you give me an idea of the maximum percentage of this energy it is possible to block in any one color? Answer, I am Ra. There may be, in an entity's pattern of in-streaming energy, a complete blockage in any energy or color or combination of energies or colors. Question 54.13. Questioner, okay, then I assume that the first distortion is the motivator or what allows this blockage. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. We wish no quibbling but prefer to avoid the use of terms such as the verb, to allow. Free will does not allow, nor would predetermination disallow, experiential distortions. Rather, the law of confusion offers a free reach for the energies of each mind, body, spirit complex. The verb, to allow, would be considered pejorative in that it suggests a polarity between right and wrong or allowed and not allowed. This may seem a minuscule point. However, to our best way of thinking it bears some weight. Question 54.14. Questioner, thank you. It bears weight to my own way of thinking also. I appreciate what you have told me. Now, I would like to then consider the origin of catalyst. First we have the condition of mind, body, spirit complex which, as a function of the first distortion, has reached a condition of blockage or partial blockage of one or more energy centers. I will assume that catalyst is necessary only if there is at least partial blockage of one energy center. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 54.15. Questioner, could you tell me why? Answer, I am Ra. While it is a primary priority to activate or unblock each energy center, it is also a primary priority at that point to begin to refine the balances between the energies so that each tone of the chord of total vibratory beingness resonates in clarity, tune, and harmony with each other energy. This balancing, tuning, and harmonizing of the self is most central to the more advanced or adept mind, body, spirit complex. Each energy may be activated without the beauty that is possible through the disciplines and appreciations of personal energies or what you might call the deeper personality or soul identity. Question 54.16. Questioner, let me make an analogy that I have just thought of. A seven-stringed musical instrument may be played by deflecting each string a full deflection and releasing it, producing notes. Instead of producing the notes this way, the individual creative personality could deflect each string the proper amount in the proper sequence, producing music. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. In the balanced individual, the energies lie waiting for the hand of the Creator to pluck harmony. Question 54.17. Questioner, I would like them to trace the evolution of catalyst upon the mind, body, spirit complexes and how it comes into use and is fully used to create this tuning. I assume that the sub-logos that formed our tiny part of the creation using the intelligence of the logos of which it is a part, provides the base catalyst that will act upon mind-body complexes and mind-body spirit complexes before they have reached a state of development where they can begin to program their own catalyst. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The sub-logos offers the catalyst at the lower levels of energy, the first triad. These have to do with the survival of the physical complex. The higher centers gain catalyst from the biases of the mind, body, spirit complex itself in response to all random, undirected experiences. Thus the less developed entity will perceive the catalyst about it in terms of survival of the physical complex with the distortions which are preferred. The more conscious entity, being conscious of the catalytic process, will begin to transform the catalyst offered by the sublogos into catalyst which may act upon the higher energy nexi. Thus the sublogos can offer only a basic skeleton, shall we say, of catalyst. The muscles and flesh having to do with the, shall we say, survival of wisdom, love, compassion, and service are brought about by the action of the mind, body, spirit complex on basic catalyst so as to create a more complex catalyst which may in turn be used to form distortions within these higher energy centers. The more advanced the entity, the more tenuous the connection between the sublogos and the perceived catalyst, until finally all catalyst is chosen, generated, and manufactured by the self, for the self. Question 54.18. Questioner: which entities incarnate at this time on this planet would be in the category of manufacturing all of their catalyst? Answer: I am Ra. We find your query indeterminate, but can respond that the number of those which have mastered outer catalyst completely is quite small. Most of those harvestable at this space-time nexus have partial control over the outer illusion and are using the outer catalyst to work upon some bias which is not yet in balance. Question 54.19. Questioner: in the case of service to self-polarization, what type of catalyst would entities following this path program when they reach the level of programming their own catalyst? Answer: I am Ra. The negatively oriented entity will program for maximal separation from and control over all those things and conscious entities which it perceives as being other than the self. Question 54.20. Questioner: a positively oriented entity may select a certain narrow path of thinking and activities during an incarnation and program conditions that would create physical pain if this were not followed. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 54.21. Questioner: would a negatively oriented entity do anything like this? Could you give me an example? Answer: I am Ra. A negatively oriented individual mind, body, spirit complex will ordinarily program for wealth, ease of existence, and the utmost opportunity for power. Thus many negative entities burst with the physical complex distortion you call health. However, a negatively oriented entity may choose a painful condition in order to improve the distortion toward the so-called negative emotive mentations such as anger, hatred, and frustration. Such an entity may use an entire incarnative experience honing a blunt edge of hatred or anger so that it may polarize more towards the negative or separated pole. Question 54.22. Questioner: prior to incarnation, as an entity becomes more aware of the process of evolution and has selected a path, whether it be positive or negative, at some point the entity becomes aware of what it wants to do with respect to unblocking and balancing its energy centers. At that point it is able to program for the life experience those catalytic experiences that will aid it in its process of unblocking and balancing. Is that correct? Answer: I am Ra. That is correct. Question 54.23. Questioner: the purpose then of what we call the incarnate physical state seems to be wholly or almost wholly that of experiencing the programmed catalyst and then evolving as a function of that catalyst. Is that correct? Answer: I am Ra. We shall restate for clarity the purpose of incarnative existence is evolution of mind, body, and spirit. In order to do this it is not strictly necessary to have catalyst. However, without catalyst the desire to evolve and the faith in the process do not normally manifest, and thus evolution occurs not. Therefore, catalyst is programmed and the program is designed for the mind, body, spirit complex for its unique requirements. Thus it is desirable that a mind, body, spirit complex be aware of and hearken to the voice of its experiential catalyst, gleaning from it that which it incarnated to glean. Question 54.24. Questioner: then it seems that those upon the positive path as opposed to those on the negative path would have precisely the reciprocal objective in the first three rays, red, orange, and yellow. Each path would be attempting to utilize the rays in precisely the opposite manners. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. It is partially and even substantially correct. There is an energy in each of the centers needed to keep the mind-body-spirit complex, which is the vehicle for experience, in correct conformation and composition. Both negative and positive entities do well to reserve this small portion of each center for the maintenance of the integrity of the mind-body-spirit complex. After this point, however, it is correct that the negative will use their three lower centers for separation from and control over others by sexual means, by personal assertion, and by action in your societies. Contrariwise, the positively oriented entity will be transmuting strong red ray sexual energy into green ray energy transfers and radiation in blue and indigo, and will be similarly transmuting selfhood and place in society into energy transfer situations in which the entity may merge with and serve others, and then, finally, radiate unto others without expecting any transfer in return. Question 54.25. Questioner: can you describe the energy that enters these energy centers? Can you describe its path from its origin, its form, and its effect? I don't know if this is possible. Answer: I am Ra. This is partially possible. Question 54.26. Questioner: would you please do that? Ra: the origin of all energy is the action of free will upon love. The nature of all energy is light. The means of its ingress into the mind-body-spirit complex is duple. Firstly, there is the inner light, which is Polaris of the self, the guiding star. This is the birthright and true nature of all entities. This energy dwells within. The second point of ingress is the polar opposite of the North Star, shall we say, and may be seen, if you wish to use the physical body as an analog for the magnetic field, as coming through the feet from the earth and through the lower point of the spine. This point of ingress of the universal light energy is undifferentiated until it begins its filtering process through the energy centers. The requirements of each center and the efficiency with which the individual has learned to tap into the inner light determine the nature of the use made by the entity of these in-streamings. Question 54.27. Questioner: does experiential catalyst follow the same path? This may be a dumb question. Answer: I am Ra. This is not a pointless question, for catalyst and the requirements or distortions of the energy centers are two concepts linked as tightly as two strands of rope. Question 54.28. Questioner: you mentioned in an earlier session that the experiential catalyst was first experienced by the South Pole and appraised with respect to its survival value. That's why I asked the question. Would you expand on this concept? Answer: I am Ra. We have addressed the filtering process by which incoming energies are pulled upwards according to the distortions of each energy center and the strength of will or desire emanating from the awareness of inner light. If we may be more specific, please query with specificity. Question 54.29. Questioner: I'll make this statement which may be somewhat distorted and then let you correct it. We have, coming through the feet and base of the spine, the total energy that the mind-body-spirit complex will receive in the way of what we call light. Each energy center then filters out and uses a portion of this energy, red through violet. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is largely correct. The exceptions are as follows: the energy ingress ends with indigo. The violet ray is a thermometer or indicator of the whole. Question 54.30. Questioner: as this energy is absorbed by the energy centers at some point, it is not only absorbed into the being but radiates through the energy center outwardly. I believe this begins at the blue center and also occurs in the indigo and violet. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. Firstly, we would state that we had not finished answering the previous query and may thus answer both in part by stating that in the fully activated entity only that small portion of in-streaming light needed to tune the energy center is used, the great remainder being free to be channeled and attracted upwards. To answer your second question more fully, we may say that is correct that radiation without the necessity of response begins with blue ray, although the green ray, being the great transitional ray, must be given all careful consideration, for until transfer of energy of all types has been experienced and mastered to a great extent, there will be blockages in the blue and indigo radiations. Again, the violet emanation is, in this context, a resource from which, through indigo, intelligent infinity may be contacted. The radiation thereof will not be violet ray but rather green, blue, or indigo depending upon the nature of the type of intelligence which infinity has brought through into discernible energy. The green ray type of radiation in this case is the healing, the blue ray the communication and inspiration, the indigo that energy of the adept which has its place in faith. Question 54.31. Questioner: what if a mind, body, spirit complex feels a feeling in meditation at the indigo center? What is he feeling? Answer: I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. One who feels this activation is one experiencing in streamings at that energy center to be used either for the unblocking of this center, for its tuning to match the harmonics of its other energy centers, or to activate the gateway to intelligent infinity. We cannot be specific for each of these three workings as experienced by the entity which feels this physical complex distortion. Is there a brief query before we leave this instrument? Question 54.32. Questioner: I just would ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Answer: I am Ra. Please be aware of the need for the support of the instrument's neck. All is well. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. I communicate now. Question 55.1. Questioner: I would first like to ask as to the condition of the instrument, please. Answer: I am Ra. This instrument is experiencing physical distortions toward weakness of the bodily complex occurring due to psychic attack. This instrument's vital energies have not been affected, however, due to the aid of those present in healing work. This instrument will apparently be subject to such weakness distortions due to incarnative processes which predispose the body complex towards weakness distortions. Question 55.2. Questioner: is there any specific thing that we can do that you have already told us or otherwise to alleviate this psychic attack or to help the instrument the most? Answer: I am Ra. We scan this instrument and find its distortion towards appreciation of each entity and each entity's caring, as you may call it. This atmosphere, shall we say, offers the greatest contrast to the discomfort of such psychic attacks, being the reciprocal, that is, the atmosphere of psychic support. This each of you do as a subconscious function of true attitudinal, mental, emotional, and spiritual distortions towards this instrument. There is no magic greater than honest distortion toward love. Question 55.3. Questioner: thank you. I want to ask a couple questions about previous material that I didn't understand. I am hoping that this will clear up my understanding somewhat with respect to the mental configurations with which we have been dealing. In the session before last you stated, however, this is a risk for the Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities attempt to bid and order the Orion contact just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. Can you explain the mechanisms that affect polarization and consciousness with respect to this statement? Answer: I am Ra. The negative polarization is greatly aided by the subjugation or enslavement of other selves. The potential between two negatively polarized entities is such that the entity which enslaves the other or bids the other gains in negative polarity. The entity so bidden or enslaved, in serving another self, will necessarily lose negative polarity although it will gain a desire for further negative polarization. This desire will then tend to create opportunities to regain negative polarity. Question 55.4. Questioner: Am I to understand then that just the fact that the third density entity calls or bids an Orion Crusader is a polarizing type of action that affects both entities? Answer: I am Ra. This is incorrect. The calling mechanism is not congruent in the slightest degree with the bidding mechanism. In the calling, the entity which calls is a suppliant neophyte asking for aid in negative understanding, if you may excuse this misnomer. The Orion response increases its negative polarity as it is disseminating the negative philosophy, thereby enslaving or bidding the entity calling. There are instances, however, when the contact becomes contest, which is prototypical of negativity. In this contest, the caller will attempt not to ask for aid, but to demand results. Since the third density negatively oriented harvestable entity has at its disposal an incarnative experiential nexus, and since Orion Crusaders are, in a great extent, bound by the first distortion in order to progress, the Orion entity is vulnerable to such bidding if properly done. In this case, the third density entity becomes master and the Orion Crusader becomes entrapped and can be bid. This is rare. However, when it has occurred, the Orion entity or social memory complex involved has experienced loss of negative polarity in proportion to the strength of the bidding third density entity. Question 55.5. Questioner: you mentioned that this will work when the bidding is properly done. What did you mean by, when the bidding is properly done? Answer: I am Ra. To properly bid is to be properly negative. The percentage of thought and behavior involving service to self must approach 99% in order for a third density negative entity to be properly configured for such a contest of bidding. Question 55.6. Questioner: what method of communication with the Orion entity would a bidder of this type use? Answer: I am Ra. The two most usual types of bidding are, 1. The use of perversions of sexual magic, 2. The use of perversions of ritual magic. In each case the key to success is the purity of the will of the bidder. The concentration upon victory over the servant must be nearly perfect. Question 55.7. Questioner: can you tell me, in the polarizations in consciousness, if there is any analogy with respect to what you just said in this type of contact with respect to what we are doing right now in communicating with Ra? Answer: I am Ra. There is no relationship between this type of contact and the bidding process. This contact may be characterized as one typical of the brothers and sisters of sorrow, wherein those receiving the contact have attempted to prepare for such contact by sacrificing extraneous, self-oriented distortions in order to be of service. The Ra social memory complex offers itself also as a function of its desire to serve. Both the caller and the contact are filled with gratitude at the opportunity of serving others. We may note that this in no way presupposes that either the callers or those of our group in any way approach a perfection or purity such as was described in the bidding process. The calling group may have many distortions and the working with much catalyst, as may those of Ra. The overriding desire to serve others, bonded with the unique harmonics of this group's vibratory complexes, gives us the opportunity to serve as one channel for the one infinite Creator. Things come not to those positively oriented but through such beings. Question 55.8. Questioner: thank you. You have stated in an earlier session that, until transfers of energy of all types have been experienced and mastered to a great extent, there will be blockages in the blue and in the indigo radiations. Could you explain that more fully? Answer: I am Ra. At this space-time we have not covered the appropriate intermediate material. Please re-question at a more appropriate space-time nexus. Question 55.9. Questioner: I'm sort of hunting around here for an entry into some information. I may not be looking in a productive area. You had stated that, as we, Ra, had been aided by shapes such as the pyramid, so we could aid your people. These shapes have been mentioned many, many times, and you have also stated that the shapes themselves aren't of too much consequence. I see a relation between these shapes and the energies that we have been studying with respect to the body, and I would like to ask a few questions on the pyramids to see if we might get an entry into some of this understanding. You stated, you will find the intersection of the triangle which is at the first level on each of the four sides forms a diamond in a plane which is horizontal. Can you tell me what you meant by the word intersection? Answer, I am Ra. Your mathematics and arithmetic have a paucity of configurative descriptions which we might use. Without intending to be obscure, we may note that the purpose of the shapes is to work with time-space portions of the mind-body-spirit complex. Therefore, the intersection is both space-time and time-space oriented and thus is expressed in three-dimensional geometry by two intersections which, when projected in both time-space and space-time, form one point. Question 55.10. Questioner, I have calculated this point to be 1/6 of the height of the triangle that forms the side of the pyramid. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. Your calculations are substantially correct and we are pleased at your perspicacity. Question 55.11. Questioner, this would indicate to me that in the pyramids of Giza, the Queen's Chamber, as it is called, would be the chamber used for initiation. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. Again, you penetrate the outer teaching. The Queen's Chamber would not be appropriate or useful for healing work as that work involves the use of energy in a more synergic configuration rather than the configuration of the centered being. Question 55.12. Questioner, then would the healing work be done in the King's Chamber? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. We may note that such terminology is not our own. Question 55.13. Questioner, yes, I understand that. It is just that it is the common naming of the two chambers of the Great Pyramid. I don't know whether this line of questioning is going to take me to a better understanding of the energies, but until I have explored the concepts there is nothing much that I can do but to ask a few questions. There is a chamber below the bottom level of the pyramid, down below ground, that appears to be roughly in line with the King's Chamber. What is that chamber? Answer, I am Ra. We may say that there is information to be gained from this line of querying. The chamber you request to be informed about is a resonating chamber. The bottom of such a structure, in order to cause the appropriate distortions for healing catalyst, shall be open. Question 55.14. Questioner, the book, The Life Force of the Great Pyramid, has related the Ankh shape with a resonance in the pyramid. Is this a correct analysis? Answer, I am Ra. We have scanned your mind and find the phrase, working with crayons. This would be applicable. There is only one significance to these shapes such as the crux and zeta, that is the placing in coded form of mathematical relationships. Question 55.15. Questioner, is the 76 degrees and 18-foot angle at the apex of the pyramid critical angle? Answer, I am Ra. For the healing work intended, this angle is appropriate. Question 55.16. Questioner, why does the King's Chamber have the various small chambers above it? Answer, I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. We must address this query more generally in order to explicate your specific question. The positioning of the entity to be healed is such that the life energies, if you will, are in a position to be briefly interrupted or intersected by light. This light then may, by the catalyst of the healer with the crystal, manipulate the aural forces, as you may call the various energy centers, in such a way that if the entity to be healed wills it so, corrections may take place. Then the entity is reprotected by its own, now less distorted, energy field and is able to go its way. The process by which this is done involves bringing the entity to be healed to an equilibrium. This involves temperature, barometric pressure, and the electrical charged atmosphere. The first two requirements are controlled by the system of chimneys. Question 55.17. Questioner: does this healing work by affecting the energy centers in such a way that they are unblocked so as to perfect the 7 bodies that they generate and, therefore, bring the entity to be healed into proper balance? Answer: I am Ra. This entity tires. We must answer in brief and state simply that the distorted configuration of the energy centers is intended to be temporarily interrupted, and the opportunity is then presented to the one to be healed to grasp the baton, to take the balanced route, and to walk thence with the distortions towards disease of mind, body, and spirit greatly lessened. The catalytic effect of the charged atmosphere and the crystal directed by the healer must be taken into consideration as integral portions of this process, for the bringing back of the entity to a configuration of conscious awareness would not be accomplished after the reorganization possibilities are offered without the healer's presence and directed will. Are there any brief queries before we leave this instrument? Question 55.18. Questioner: only is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve this contact? Answer: I am Ra. All is well. You are conscientious. I now leave this working. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 56.1. Questioner: would you first please give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Answer: I am Ra. This instrument is severely distorted towards weakness of the mental and physical complexes at this time and is under psychic attack due to this opportunity. Question 56.2. Questioner: would it be better to discontinue the contact at this time? Answer: I am Ra. This is entirely at your discretion. This instrument has some energy transferred which is available. However, it is not great due to the effects as previously stated. We, if you desire to question us further at this working, will as always attempt to safeguard this instrument. We feel that you are aware of the parameters without further elaboration. Question 56.3. Questioner: in that case I will ask, how does the pyramid shape work? Answer: I am Ra. We are assuming that you wish to know the principle of the shapes, angles, and intersections of the pyramid at what you call Giza. In reality, the pyramid shape does no work. It does not work. It is an arrangement for the centralization as well as the diffraction of the spiraling upward light energy as it is being used by the mind, body, spirit complex. The spiraling nature of light is such that the magnetic fields of an individual are affected by spiraling energy. Certain shapes offer an echo chamber, shall we say, or an intensifier for spiraling prana, as some have called this all-present, primal distortion of the one infinite Creator. If the intent is to intensify the necessity for the entity's own will to call forth the inner light in order to match the intensification of the spiraling light energy, the entity will be placed in what you have called the Queen's Chamber position in this particular shaped object. This is the initiatory place and is the place of resurrection. The offset place, representing the spiral as it is in motion, is the appropriate position for one to be healed, as in this position an entity's vibratory magnetic nexi are interrupted in their normal flux. Thus a possibility-probability vortex ensues, a new beginning, shall we say, is offered for the entity in which the entity may choose a less distorted, weak, or blocked configuration of energy center magnetic distortions. The function of the healer and crystal may not be overemphasized, for this power of interruption must needs be controlled, shall we say, with incarnate intelligence, the intelligence being that of one which recognizes energy patterns, which, without judging, recognizes blockage, weakness, and other distortion, and which is capable of visualizing, through the regularity of self and of crystal, the less distorted other self to be healed. Other shapes which are arched, groined, vaulted, conical, or azure tippies are also shapes with this type of intensification of spiraling light. Your caves, being rounded, are places of power due to this shaping. It is to be noted that these shapes are dangerous. We are quite pleased to have the opportunity to enlarge upon the subject of shapes such as the pyramid, for we wish, as part of our honored duty, to state that there are many wrong uses for these curved shapes, for with improper placement, improper intentions, or lack of the crystallized being functioning as channel for healing, the sensitive entity will be distorted more rather than less in some cases. It is to be noted that your peoples build, for the most part, the cornered or square habitations, for they do not concentrate power. It is further to be noted that the spiritual seeker has, for many of your time periods of years, sought the rounded, arched, and peaked forms as an expression of the power of the Creator. Question 56.4. Questioner: is there an apex angle that is the angle for maximum efficiency in the pyramid? Answer: I am Ra. Again, to conserve this instrument's energy, I am assuming that you intend to indicate the most appropriate angle of apex for healing work. If the shape is such that it is large enough to contain an individual mind, body, spirit complex at the appropriate offset position within it, the 76 degrees 18 single quote approximate angle is useful and appropriate. If the position varies, the angle may vary. Further, if the healer has the ability to perceive distortions with enough discrimination, the position within any pyramid shape may be moved about until results are effected. However, we found this particular angle to be useful. Other social memory complexes, or portions thereof, have determined different apex angles for different uses, not having to do with healing but with learning. When one works with the cone, or shall we say, the silo type of shape, the energy for healing may be found to be in a general circular pattern unique to each shape as a function of its particular height and width, and in the cone shape, the angle of apex. In these cases, there are no corner angles. Thus the spiraling energy works in circular motion. Question 56.5. Questioner: I will make a statement which you can correct. I intuitively see the spiraling energy of the Giza pyramid being spread out as it moves through the so-called King's Chamber and refocusing in the so-called Queen's Chamber. I am guessing that the spread of energy in the so-called King's Chamber is seen in the spectrum of colors, red through violet, and that the energy centers of the entity to be healed should be aligned with this spread of the spectrum so that the spectrum matches his various energy centers. Will you correct this statement? Answer: I am Ra. We can correct this statement. Question 56.6. Questioner: will you please do that? Ra: the spiraling energy is beginning to be diffused at the point where it goes through the King's Chamber position. However, although the spirals continue to intersect, closing and opening in double spiral fashion through the apex angle, the diffusion or strength of the spiraling energies, red through violet color values, lessens if we speak of strength, and gains if we speak of diffusion, until at the peak of the pyramid you have a very weak color resolution useful for healing purposes. Thus the King's Chamber position is chosen as the first spiral after the centered beginning through the Queen's Chamber position. You may visualize the diffusion angle as the opposite of the pyramid angle, but the angle being less wide than the apex angle of the pyramid, being somewhere between 33 and 54 degrees, depending upon the various rhythms of the planet itself. Question 56.7. Questioner: then I assume that if I start my angle at the bottom of the Queen's Chamber and make a 33 to 54 degrees angle from that point, so that half of that angle falls on the side of the center limb that the King's Chamber is on, that will indicate the diffusion of the spectrum, starting from the point at the bottom of the Queen's Chamber. Let's say, if we were using a 40 degrees angle, we would have a 20 degrees diffusion to the left of the center line, passing through the king's chamber. Is that correct? Answer: I am Ra. This will be the last full question of this session. It is correct that half of the aforementioned angle passes through the king's chamber position. It is incorrect to assume that the queen's chamber is the foundation of the angle. The angle will begin somewhere between the queen's chamber position and thence downward towards the level of the resonating chamber, offset for the healing work. This variation is dependent upon various magnetic fluxes of the planet. The king's chamber position is designed to intersect the strongest spiral of the energy flow regardless of where the angle begins. However, as it passes through the queen's chamber position, this spiraling energy is always centered and at its strongest point. May we answer any brief queries at this time? Question 56.8. Questioner: I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Answer: I am Ra. All is well, my friends. It is well, however, to be conscious of the limitations of this instrument. We feel the alignments are excellent at this time. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 57.1. Questioner: First, could you give me an indication of the instrument's condition, please? Answer: I am Ra. This instrument is under a most severe psychic attack. This instrument is bearing up well due to replenished vital energies and a distortion towards a sense of proportion which your peoples call a sense of humor. This attack is potentially disruptive to this contact for a brief period of your space-time. Question 57.2. Questioner: Is there anything in particular that we can do in addition to what we are doing to alleviate this attack? Answer: I am Ra. There is nothing you can do to alleviate the attack. The understanding of its mechanism might be of aid. Question 57.3. Questioner: Could you tell us its mechanism? Answer: I am Ra. The Orion group cannot interfere directly but only through pre-existing distortions of mind, body, spirit complexes. Thus in this case, this entity reached for an heavy object with one hand and this miscalculated action caused a deformation or distortion of the skeletal muscular structure of one of this instrument's appendages. Your aid may be helpful in supporting this instrument in the proper care of this distortion, which is equivalent to what you call your post-operative state when bones are not firmly knit. This instrument needs to be aware of care necessary to avoid such miscalculated actions, and your support in this state of awareness is noted and encouraged. Question 57.4. Questioner: Is there anything that we can specifically do to alleviate this problem that is already existing? Answer: I am Ra. This information is harmless, thus we share it though it is transient, lacking the principle but only offering a specific transient effect. The wrist area should be wrapped as in a sprained configuration, as you call this distortion, and what you call a sling may be used on this distorted right side of the body complex for one diurnal period. At that time symptoms, as you call these distortions, should be reviewed and such repeated until the distortion is alleviated. The healing work to which each is apprentice may be used as desired. It is to be noted that a crystal is available. Question 57.5. Questioner: Which crystal is that? Answer: I am Ra. The flawed but sufficient crystal which rests upon the digit of this instrument's right hand. Question 57.6. Questioner: Would you tell me how to use that crystal for this purpose? Answer: I am Ra. This is a large question. You first, as a mind, body, spirit complex, balance and polarize the self, connecting the inner light with the upward spiraling inpourings of the universal light. You have done exercises to regularize the processes involved. Look to them for the preparation of the crystallized being. Take then the crystal and feel your polarized and potentiated balanced energy channeled in green ray healing through your being, going into and activating the crystalline regularity of frozen light, which is the crystal. The crystal will resound with the charged light of incarnative love, and light energy will begin to radiate in specified fashion, beaming in required light vibrations, healing energy, focused and intensified towards the magnetic field of the mind, body, spirit complex which is to be healed. This entity requesting such healing will then open the armor of the overall violet red ray protective vibratory shield. Thus the inner vibratory fields from center to center in mind, body and spirit may be interrupted and adjusted momentarily, thus offering the one to be healed the opportunity to choose a less distorted inner complex of energy fields and vibratory relationships. Question 57.7. Questioner, should the crystal be held in the right hand of the healer? Answer, I am Ra. This is incorrect. There are two recommended configurations. The first, the chain about the neck to place the crystal in the physical position of the green ray energy center. Second, the chain hung from the right hand, outstretched, wound about the hand in such a way that the crystal may be swung so as to effect sensitive adjustments. We offer this information realizing that much practice is needed to efficiently use these energies of self. However, each has the capability of doing so, and this information is not information which, if followed accurately, can be deleterious. Question 57.8. Questioner, would an unflawed crystal be considerably more effective than the flawed one that we have now? Answer, I am Ra. Without attempting to deem the priorities you may choose, we may note that the regularized or crystallized entity in its configuration is as critical as the perfection of the crystal used. Question 57.9. Questioner, does the physical size of the crystal have any relationship to the effectiveness in the healing? Answer, I am Ra. In some applications concerning planetary healing, this is a consideration. In working with an individual mind, body, spirit complex, the only requirement is that the crystal be in harmony with the crystallized being. There is perhaps a lower limit to the size of what you may call a faceted crystal, for light coming through this crystal needs to be spread the complete width of the spectrum of the one to be healed. It may further be noted that water is a type of crystal which is efficacious also, although not as easy to hang from a chain in your density. Question 57.10. Questioner, placing the end of this pencil on my navel, would the point of it then represent the place where the crystal should hang for proper green ray? Is this position correct? Answer, I am Ra. We attempt your measurements. From 2 to 5.4 centimeters towards your heart is optimal. Question 57.11. Questioner, using this piece of wood then, I would determine, from my navel, the position to be at the top of the piece of wood. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 57.12. Questioner, how does the healing that you just told us about relate to the healing done in the King's Chamber in the Giza Pyramid? Answer, I am Ra. There are two advantages to doing this working in such a configuration of shapes and dimensions. Firstly, the disruption or interruption of the violet red armoring or protective shell is automatic. In the second place, the light is configured by the very placement of this position in the 7 distinctive color or energy vibratory rates, thus allowing the energy through the crystallized being, focused with the crystal, to manipulate with great ease the undisturbed and, shall we say, carefully delineated palette of energies or colors, both in space-time and in time-space. Thus the unarmored being may be adjusted rapidly. This is desirable in some cases, especially when the armoring is the largest moiety of the possibility of continued function of body complex activity in this density. The trauma of the interruption of this armoring vibration is then seen to be lessened. We take this opportunity to pursue our honor duty, as some of those creating the pyramid shape, to note that it is in no way necessary to use this shape in order to achieve healings, for seniority of vibration has caused the vibratory complexes of mind-body-spirit complexes to be healed to be less vulnerable to the trauma of the interrupted armoring. Furthermore, as we have said, the powerful effect of the pyramid, with its mandatory disruption of the armoring, if used without the crystallized being, used with the wrong intention, or in the wrong configuration, can result in further distortions of entities which are perhaps the equal of some of your chemicals which cause disruptions in the energy fields in like manner. Question 57.13. Questioner, is there currently any use for the pyramid shape at all that is beneficial? Answer, I am Ra. This is in the affirmative if carefully used. The pyramid may be used for the improvement of the meditative state as long as the shape is such that the entity is in Queen's Chamber position or entities are in balanced configuration about this central point. The small pyramid shape placed beneath a portion of the body complex may energize this body complex. This should be done for brief periods only, not to exceed 30 of your minutes. The use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies still functions to a slight extent, but due to Earth changes, the pyramids are no longer aligned properly for this work. Question 57.14. Questioner, what is the aid or the mechanism of the aid received for meditation by an entity who will be positioned in the so-called Queen's Chamber position? Answer, I am Ra. Consider the polarity of mind, body, spirit complexes. The inner light as that which is your heart of being. Its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. The position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the in-streaming light upward spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. Thus this is the place of the initiate, for many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking, so that it may become one with this centralized and purified incoming light. Question 57.15. Questioner, then if a pyramid shape is used, it would seem to me that it would be necessary to make it large enough so that the Queen's Chamber position would be far enough from the King's Chamber position so that you could use that energy position and not be harmed by the energy position of the King's Chamber position. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. In this application a pyramid shape may be smaller if the apex angle is less, thus not allowing the formation of the King's Chamber position. Also efficacious for this application are the following shapes: the silo, the cone, the dome, and the teepee. Question 57.16. Questioner, do these shapes that you just mentioned have any of the effect of the King's Chamber at all, or do they have only the Queen's Chamber effect? Answer, I am Ra. These shapes have the Queen's Chamber effect. It is to be noted that a strongly crystallized entity is, in effect, a portable King's Chamber position. Question 57.17. Questioner, then are you saying that there is absolutely no need, use, or good in having the King's Chamber effect at this time in our planetary evolution? Answer, I am Ra. If those who desired to be healers were of a crystallized nature and were all supplicants, those wishing less distortion, the pyramid would be, as always, a carefully designed set of parameters to distribute light and its energy so as to aid in healing catalyst. However, we found that your peoples are not distorted towards the desire for purity to a great enough extent to be given this powerful and potentially dangerous gift. We, therefore, would suggest it not be used for healing in the traditional, shall we say, King's Chamber configuration which we naively gave to your peoples only to see its use grossly distorted and our teachings lost. Question 57.18. Questioner, what would be an appropriate apex angle for a teepee shape for our uses? Answer, I am Ra. This is at your discretion. The principle of circular, rounded or peaked shapes is that the center acts as an invisible inductive coil. Thus the energy patterns are spiraling and circular. Thus the choice of the most pleasant configuration is yours. The effect is relatively fixed. Question 57.19. Questioner, is there any variation in the effect with respect to the material of construction, the thickness of the material? Is it simply the geometry of the shape, or is it related to some other factors? Answer, I am Ra. The geometry, as you call it, or relationships of these shapes and their configuration is the great consideration. It is well to avoid stannous material or that of lead or other baser metals. Wood, plastic, glass, and other materials may all be considered to be appropriate. Question 57.20. Questioner, if a pyramid shape were placed below an entity, how would this be done? Would it be placed beneath the bed? I'm not quite sure about how to energize the entity by placing it below. Could you tell me how to do that? Answer, I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. If the shape is of appropriate size, it may be placed directly beneath the cushion of the head or the pallet upon which the body complex rests. We again caution that the third spiral of upward lining light, that which is emitted from the apex of this shape, is most deleterious to an entity in overdose and should not be used overlong. Question 57.21. Questioner, what would the height be, in centimeters, of one of these pyramids for best functioning? Answer, I am Ra. It matters not. Only the proportion of the height of the pyramid from base to apex to the perimeter of the base is at all important. Question 57.22. Questioner, what should the proportion be? Answer, I am Ra. This proportion should be the 1.16 which you may observe. Question 57.23. Questioner, do you mean that the sum of the four base sides should be 1.16 of the height of the pyramid? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 57.24. Questioner, by saying that the Queen's chamber was the initiatory place, could you tell me what you mean by that? Answer, I am Ra. This question is a large one. We cannot describe initiation in its specific sense due to our distortion towards the belief understanding that the process which we offered so many of your years ago was not a balanced one. However, you are aware of the concept of initiation and realize that it demands the centering of the being upon the seeking of the Creator. We have hoped to balance this understanding by enunciating the law of one, that is, that all things are one Creator. Thus seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and in the work of an adept but in the experiential nexus of each moment. The initiation of the Queen's chamber has to do with the abandoning of self to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified in-streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. Thus the entity experiences true life or, as your people call it, resurrection. Question 57.25. Questioner, you also mentioned that the pyramid was used for learning. Was this the same process or is there a difference? Answer, I am Ra. There is a difference. Question 57.26. Questioner, what is the difference? Answer, I am Ra. The difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time and after some study in time-space, for the purpose of learning. In the system created by us, schools were apart from the pyramid, the experiences being solitary. Question 57.27. Questioner, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that. Could you tell me more of what you are talking about? Answer, I am Ra. This is a wide subject. Please restate for specificity. Question 57.28. Questioner, did you mean that teachers from your vibration or density were manifest in the Queen's chamber to teach those initiates, or did you mean something else? Answer, I am Ra. In our system, experiences in the Queen's chamber position were solitary. In Atlantis and in South America, teachers shared the pyramid experiences. Question 57.29. Questioner, how did this learning process take place, learning or teaching, in the pyramid? Answer, I am Ra. How does teach learning and learn teaching ever take place? Question 57.30. Questioner, the dangerous pyramid shape for use today would be a four-sided pyramid that was large enough to create the King's chamber effect. Is that statement correct? Answer, I am Ra. This statement is correct with the additional understanding that the 76 degrees apex angle is that characteristic of the powerful shape. Question 57.31. Questioner, then I am assuming that we should not use a pyramid of 76 degrees at the apex angle under any circumstances. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is at your discretion. Question 57.32. Questioner, I will restate the question. I am assuming then that it might be dangerous to use a 76 degrees angle pyramid, and I will ask what angle less than 76 degrees would be roughly the first angle that would not produce this dangerous effect. Answer: I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. The lesser angle may be any angle less than 70 degrees. Question 57.33. Questioner: thank you. I want to go on with more questioning on the pyramid, but I want to ask a question that name has here. I'll throw it in at this point. Could you please expand on the concept of space-time and time-space and how to get past this concept, and what density level do these concepts no longer affect the individual? Answer: I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. This instrument has some vital energy left. However, we become concerned with the increasing distortions of the body complex towards pain. The space-time and time-space concepts are those concepts describing as mathematically as possible the relationships of your illusion, that which is seen to that which is unseen. These descriptive terms are clumsy. They, however, suffice for this work. In the experiences of the mystical search for unity, these need never be considered, for they are but part of an illusory system. The seeker seeks the One. The One is to be sought, as we have said, by the balanced and self-accepting self-aware, both of its apparent distortions and its total perfection. Resting in this balanced awareness, the entity then opens the self to the universe which it is. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking, and wherever the inner seeking meets the attracted cosmic pran, realization of the One takes place. The purpose of clearing each energy center is to allow that meeting place to occur at the indigo ray vibration, thus making contact with intelligent infinity and dissolving all illusions. Service to others is automatic at the released energy generated by this state of consciousness. The space-time and time-space distinctions, as you understand them, do not hold sway except in third density. However, fourth, fifth, and to some extent, sixth, work within some system of polarized space-time and time-space. The calculation necessary to move from one system to another through the dimensions are somewhat difficult. Therefore, we have the most difficulty sharing numerical concepts with you and take this opportunity to repeat our request that you monitor our numbers and query any that seem questionable. Is there a brief query that we may answer before we leave this instrument? Question 57.34. Questioner: is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer: I am Ra. All is harmonious. We greet you all in joy. The adjustments are satisfactory. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the One Infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the One Infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the One Infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 58.1. Questioner: would you please give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Answer: I am Ra. This condition is as previously noted, except that the physical distortions mentioned have somewhat increased. Question 58.2. Questioner: could you tell me the cause of the increase of the physical distortions? Answer: I am Ra. Physical distortions of this nature are begun, as we have said, due to overactivity of weak, as you call this distortion, portions of the body complex. The worsening is due to the nature of the distortion itself, which you call arthritis. Once begun, the distortion will unpredictably remain and unpredictably worsen or lessen. Question 58.3. Questioner: we have tried healing with the diamond crystal. I have tried both using the crystal around my neck and dangling it from a chain held in my right hand. I think that possibly that to do the best work on the wrist I should dangle the crystal just below my right hand from a distance of just a centimeter or two, holding it directly above the wrist. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This would be appropriate if you were practiced at your healing art. to work with a powerful crystal such as you have, while unable to perceive the magnetic flux of the subtle bodies, is perhaps the same as recommending that the beginner, with saw and nail, create the Vatican. There is great art in the use of the Swan crystal. At this point in your development, you would do well to work with the unpowerful crystals in ascertaining, not only the physical major energy centers, but also the physical secondary and tertiary energy centers, and then begin to find the corresponding subtle body energy centers. In this way, you may activate your own inner vision. Question 58.4. Questioner: what type of crystal should be used for that? Answer: I am Ra. You may use any dangling weight of symmetrical form, for your purpose is not to disturb or manipulate these energy centers but merely to locate them and become aware of what they feel like when in a balanced state and when in an unbalanced or blocked state. Question 58.5. Questioner: am I correct in assuming that what I am to do is to dangle a weight approximately 2 feet below my hand and place it over the body, and when the weight starts moving in a clockwise rotational direction it would indicate an unblocked energy center? Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. The measurement from hand to weight is unimportant and at your discretion. The circular motion shows an unblocked energy center. However, some entities are polarized the reverse of others and, therefore, it is well to test the form of normal energy spirals before beginning the procedure. Question 58.6. Questioner: how would you test? Answer: I am Ra. Test is done by first holding the weight over your own hand and observing your particular configuration. Then using the other self's hand, repeat the procedure. Question 58.7. Questioner: in the case of the instrument we are concerned with the healing of the wrists and hands. Would I then test the energy center of the instrument's wrist area? Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. We have given you general information regarding this form of healing and have explicated the instrument's condition. There is a line beyond which information is an intrusion upon the law of confusion. Question 58.8. Questioner: I would like to trace the energy patterns and what is actually happening in these patterns and flow of energy in a couple of instances. I would first take the pyramid shape and trace the energy that is focused somehow by this shape. I will make a statement and let you correct it. I think that the pyramid can be in any orientation and provide some focusing of spiraling energy, but the greatest focusing of it occurs when one side of it is precisely parallel to magnetic north. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is substantially correct with one addition. If one corner is oriented to the magnetic north, the energy will be enhanced in its focus also. Question 58.9. Questioner: do you mean that if I drew a line through two opposite corners of the pyramid at the base and aimed that at magnetic north, that would be precisely 45 degrees out of the orientation of one side aimed at magnetic north, that it would work just as well? Is that what you are saying? Answer: I am Ra. It would work much better than if the pyramid shape were quite unaligned. It would not work quite as efficiently as the aforementioned configuration. Question 58.10. Questioner: would the pyramid shape work just as well right side up as upside down with respect to the surface of the Earth, assuming the magnetic alignment was the same in both cases? Answer: I am Ra. We do not penetrate your query. The reversed shape of the pyramid reverses the effects of the pyramid. Further, it is difficult to build such a structure, point down. Perhaps we have misinterpreted your query. Question 58.11. Questioner: I used this question only to understand the way the pyramid focuses light, not for the purpose of using one. I was just saying if we did build the pyramid point down, would it focus at the Queen's chamber position or just below it the same way as if it were point up? Answer: I am Ra. It would only work thusly if an entity's polarity were, for some reason, reversed. Question 58.12. Questioner: then the lines of spiraling light energy, do they originate from a position towards the center of the Earth and radiate outward from that point? Answer: I am Ra. The pyramid shape is a collector which draws the in-streaming energy from what you would term the bottom or base and allows this energy to spiral upward in a line with the apex of this shape. This is also true if a pyramid shape is upended. The energy is not earth energy, as we understand your question, but is light energy which is omnipresent. Question 58.13. Questioner, does it matter if the pyramid is solid or is made of four thin sides, or is there a difference in effect between those two makes? Answer, I am Ra. As an energy collector, the shape itself is the only requirement. From the standpoint of the practical needs of your body complexes, if one is to house oneself in such a shape, it is well that this shape be solid-sided in order to avoid being inundated by outer stimuli. Question 58.14. Questioner, then if I just used a wire frame that was four pieces of wire joined at the apex running down to the base, and the pyramid were totally open, this would do the same thing to the spiraling light energy? Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. The concept of the frame as equal to the solid form is correct. However, there are many metals not recommended for use in pyramid shapes designed to aid the meditative process. Those that are recommended are, in your system of butter, what you call expensive. The wood, or other natural materials, or the man-made plastic rods will also be of service. Question 58.15. Questioner, why is the spiraling light focused by something as open and simple as four wooden rods joined at an apex angle? Answer, I am Ra. If you pictured light in the metaphysical sense as water, and the pyramid shape as a funnel, this concept might become self-evident. Question 58.16. Questioner, thank you. I do not wish to get into subject matter of no importance. I had assumed that questions about the pyramid were desired by you due to the fact that some danger was involved to some who had misused the pyramid, etc. I am trying to understand the way light works and am trying to get a grasp of how everything works together, and I was hoping that questions on the pyramid would help me understand the third distortion, which is light. As I understand it, the pyramid shape acts as a funnel increasing the density of energy so that the individual may have a greater intensity of actually the third distortion. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. In general, this is correct. Question 58.17. Questioner, then the pure crystalline shape, such as the diamond, you mentioned as being frozen light, it seems that this third density physical manifestation of light is somehow window or focusing mechanism for the third distortion in a general sense. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is basically correct. However, it may be noted that only the will of the crystallized entity may cause interdimensional light to flow through this material. The more regularized the entity, and the more regularized the crystal, the more profound the effect. Question 58.18. Questioner, there are many people who are now bending metal, doing other things like that by mentally requesting this happen. What is happening in that case? Answer, I am Ra. That which occurs in this instance may be likened to the influence of the second spiral of light in a pyramid being used by an entity. As this second spiral ends at the apex, the light may be likened unto a laser beam in the metaphysical sense, and when intelligently directed may cause bending not only in the pyramid, but this is the type of energy which is tapped into by those capable of this focusing of the upward spiraling light. This is made possible through contact in indigo ray with intelligent energy. Question 58.19. Questioner, why are these people able to do this? They seem to have no training, they are just able to do it. Answer, I am Ra. They remember the disciplines necessary for this activity, which is merely useful upon other true color vibratory experiential nexi. Question 58.20. Questioner, then you are saying that this wouldn't be useful in our present density. Will it be useful in fourth density on this planet in the very near future? Answer, I am Ra. The end of such energy focusing is to build, not to destroy, and it does become quite useful as, shall we say, an alternative to third density building methods. Question 58.21. Questioner, is it also used for healing? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 58.22. Questioner, is there any advantage in attempting to develop these characteristics or in being able to bend metal, etc.? What I am trying to say is, are these characteristics a signpost to the development of an entity, or is it merely something else? For instance, as an entity develops through his indigo, will a signpost of his development be this bending ability? Answer: I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. Let us specify the three spirals of light energy which the pyramid exemplifies. Firstly, the fundamental spiral which is used for study and for healing. Second, the spiral to the apex which is used for building. Thirdly, the spiral spreading from the apex which is used for energizing. Contact with indigo ray need not necessarily show itself in any certain gift or guide post, as you have said. There are some whose indigo energy is that of pure being and never is manifested, yet all are aware of such an entity's progress. Others may teach or share in many ways contact with intelligent energy. Others continue in unmanifested form, seeking intelligent infinity. Thus the manifestation is less a signpost than that which is sensed or intuited about a mind-body-spirit complex. This violet ray beingness is far more indicative of true self. Are there any brief queries or small matters we may clear up, if we can, before we leave this instrument? Question 58.23. Questioner: I did have a question on what you meant by the third spiral, and if that is too long I would just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact. Answer: I am Ra. We may answer briefly. You may query in more detail if you deem it desirable at another session. If you picture the candle flame, you may see the third spiral. This instrument is well balanced. The accoutrements are aligned well. You are conscientious. I am Ra. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 59.1. Questioner: could you first tell me the instrument's condition and why she feels so tired? Answer: I am Ra. This instrument's condition is as previously stated. We cannot infringe upon your free will by discussing the latter query. Question 59.2. Questioner: would it be any greater protection for the instrument if Name changed his sitting position to the other side of the bed? Answer: I am Ra. No. Question 59.3. Questioner: I have a question from Jim and it states, I think that I have penetrated my lifelong mystery of my anger at making mistakes. I think that I have always been aware subconsciously of my ability to master new learning, but my desire to successfully complete my work on earth has been energized by the Orion group into irrational and destructive anger when I fail. Could you comment on this observation? Answer: I am Ra. We would suggest that as this entity is aware of its position as a wanderer, it may also consider what pre-incarnative decisions it undertook to make regarding the personal or self-oriented portion of the choosing to be here at this particular time-space. This entity is aware, as stated, that it has great potential, but potential for what? This is the pre-incarnative question. The work of sixth density is to unify wisdom and compassion. This entity abounds in wisdom. The compassion it is desirous of balancing has, as its antithesis, lack of compassion. In the more conscious being this expresses or manifests itself as lack of compassion for self. We feel this is the sum of suggested concepts for thought which we may offer at this time without infringement. Question 59.4. Questioner: at the end of the second major cycle there were a few 100,000 people on Earth. There are over 4 billion people on Earth today. Were the over 4 billion people that are incarnate today in the Earth planes and not incarnate at that time, or did they come in from elsewhere during the last 25,000 years? Answer: I am Ra. There were three basic divisions of origin of these entities. Firstly, and primarily, those of the planetary sphere you call Moldek, having become able to take up third density once again, were gradually loosed from self-imposed limitations of form. Secondly, there were those of other third density entrants or neophytes whose vibratory patterns matched the Turan experiential nexus. These then filtered in through incarnative processes. Thirdly, in the past approximate 200 of your years you have experienced much visiting of the wanderers. It may be noted that all possible opportunities for incarnation are being taken at this time due to your harvesting process and the opportunities which this offers. Question 59.5. Questioner, just to clarify that, could you tell me approximately how many mind, body, spirit complexes were transferred to Earth at the beginning of this last 75,000-year period? Answer, I am Ra. The transfer, as you call it, has been gradual. Over 2 billion souls are those of Moldek which have successfully made the transition. Approximately 1.9 billion souls have, from many portions of the creation, entered into this experience at various times. The remainder are those who have experienced the first 2 cycles upon this sphere or who have come in at some point as wanderers, some wanderers having been in this sphere for many thousands of your years, others having come far more recently. Question 59.6. Questioner, I'm trying to understand the 3 spirals of light in the pyramid shape. I would like to question on each. The first spiral starts below the Queen's chamber and ends in the Queen's chamber. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The first notion of upward spiraling light is as that of the scoop, the light energy being scooped in through the attraction of the pyramid shape through the bottom or base. Thus the first configuration is a semi-spiral. Question 59.7. Questioner, would this be similar to the vortex you get when you release water from a bathtub? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct, except that in the case of this action the cause is gravitic, whereas in the case of the pyramid the vortex is that of upward spiraling light being attracted by the electromagnetic fields engendered by the shape of the pyramid. Question 59.8. Questioner, then the first spiral after this semi-spiral is the spiral used for study and healing. Relative to the Queen's chamber position, where does this first spiral begin and end? Answer, I am Ra. The spiral which is used for study and healing begins at or slightly below the Queen's chamber position depending upon your earth and cosmic rhythms. It moves through the King's chamber position in a sharply delineated form and ends at the point whereby the top approximate third of the pyramid may be seen to be intensifying the energy. Question 59.9. Questioner, the first spiral is obviously different somehow from the second and third spirals since they have different uses and different properties. The second spiral then starts at the end of the first spiral and goes up to the apex. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The large spiral is drawn into the vortex of the apex of the pyramid. However, some light energy which is of the more intense nature of the red, shall we say, end of the spectrum is spiraled once again, causing an enormous strengthening and focusing of energy which is then of use for building. Question 59.10. Questioner, and then the third spiral radiates from the top of the pyramid. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. The third complete spiral does so. This is correct. It is well to reckon with the foundation semi-spiral which supplies the prana for all that may be affected by the 3 following upward spirals of light. Question 59.11. Questioner, now I am trying to understand what happens in this process. I'll call the first semi-spiral 0 position and the other 3 spirals 1, 2, and 3, the first spiral being a study in healing. What change takes place in light from 0 position to the first spiral that makes that first spiral available for healing? Answer, I am Ra. The prana scooped in by the pyramid shape gains coherence of energetic direction. The term, upward spiraling light, is an indication, not of your up and down concept, but but an indication of the concept of that which reaches towards the source of love and light. Thus all light or prana is upward spiraling, but its direction, as you understand this term, is unregimented and not useful for work. Question 59.12. Questioner: could I assume then that from all points in space light radiates in our illusion outward in a 360 degrees solid angle, and this scoop shape with the pyramid then creates the coherence to this radiation as a focusing mechanism? Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is precisely correct. Question 59.13. Questioner: then the first spiral has a different factor of cohesion, you might say, than the second. What is the difference between this first and second spiral? Answer: I am Ra. As the light is funneled into what you term the zero position, it reaches the point of turning. This acts as a compression of the light, multiplying tremendously its coherence and organization. Question 59.14. Questioner: then is the coherence and organization multiplied once more at the start of the second spiral? Is there just a doubling effect or an increasing effect? Answer: I am Ra. This is difficult to discuss in your language. There is no doubling effect but a transformation across boundaries of dimension, so that light which was working for those using it in space-time, time-space configuration becomes light working in what you might consider an interdimensional time-space, space-time configuration. This causes an apparent diffusion and weakness of the spiraling energy. However, in position 2, as you have called it, much work may be done interdimensionally. Question 59.15. Questioner: in the Giza pyramid there was no chamber at position 2. Do you ever make use of position 2 by putting a chamber in that position on other planets or in other pyramids? Answer: I am Ra. This position is useful only to those whose abilities are such that they are capable of serving as conductors of this type of focused spiral. One would not wish to attempt to train third density entities in such disciplines. Question 59.16. Questioner: then the third spiral radiating from the top of the pyramid you say is used for energizing. Can you tell me what you mean by energizing? Answer: I am Ra. The third spiral is extremely full of the positive effects of directed prana, and that which is placed over such a shape will receive shocks energizing the electromagnetic fields. This can be most stimulating in third density applications of mental and bodily configurations. However, if allowed to be in place over long, such shocks may traumatize the entity. Question 59.17. Questioner: are there any other effects of the pyramid shape beside the spirals that we have just discussed? Answer: I am Ra. There are several. However, their uses are limited. The use of the resonating chamber position is one which challenges the ability of an adept to face the self. This is one type of mental test which may be used. It is powerful and quite dangerous. The outer shell of the pyramid shape contains small vortices of light energy which, in the hands of capable crystallized beings, are useful for various subtle workings upon the healing of invisible bodies affecting the physical body. Other of these places are those wherein perfect sleep may be obtained and age reversed. These characteristics are not important. Question 59.18. Questioner: what position would be the age reversal position? Answer: I am Ra. Approximately 5 to 10 degrees above and below the Queen's Chamber position in ovoid shapes on each face of the four-sided pyramid, extending into the solid shape approximately 1/4 of the way to the Queen's Chamber position. Question 59.19. Questioner: in other words, if I went just inside the wall of the pyramid 1/4 of the way but still remained 3/4 of the way from the center at approximately the level above the base of the Queen's Chamber, I would find that position. Answer: I am Ra. This is approximately so. You must picture the double teardrop extending in both the plane of the pyramid face and in half towards the Queen's chamber, extending above and below it. You may see this as the position where the light has been scooped into the spiral and then is expanding again. This position is what you may call a prana vacuum. Question 59.20. Questioner: why would this reverse aging? Answer: I am Ra. Aging is a function of the effects of various electromagnetic fields upon the electromagnetic fields of the mind, body, spirit complex. In this position there is no input or disturbance of the fields, nor is any activity within the electromagnetic field complex of the mind, body, spirit complex allowed full sway. The vacuum sucks any such disturbance away. Thus the entity feels nothing and is suspended. Question 59.21. Questioner: is the pyramid shape constructed in our yard functioning properly? Is it aligned properly and built properly? Answer: I am Ra. It is built within good tolerances though not perfect. However, its alignment should be as this resting place for maximum efficacy. Question 59.22. Questioner: do you mean that one of the base sides should be aligned 20 degrees east of north? Answer: I am Ra. That alignment would be efficacious. Question 59.23. Questioner: previously you stated that one of the base sides should be aligned with magnetic north. Which is better, to align with magnetic north or to align with 20 degrees east of magnetic north? Answer: I am Ra. This is at your discretion. The proper alignment for you of this sphere at this time is magnetic north. However, in your query you asked specifically about a structure which has been used by specific entities whose energy vortices are more consonant with the, shall we say, true color green orientation. This would be the 20 degrees east of north. There are advantages to each orientation. The effect is stronger at magnetic north and can be felt more clearly. The energy, the weak, coming from the now distant, but soon to be paramount, direction is more helpful. The choice is yours. It is the choice between quantity and quality or wide band and narrow band aid in meditation. Question 59.24. Questioner: when the planetary axis realigns, will it realign 20 degrees east of north to conform to the green vibration? Answer: I am Ra. We fear this shall be the last question, as this entity rapidly increases its distortion towards what you call pain of the body complex. There is every indication that this will occur. We cannot speak of certainties but are aware that the grosser or less dense materials will be pulled into conformation with the denser and lighter energies which give your logos its proceedings through the realms of experience. May we answer any brief queries at this time? Question 59.25. Questioner: only if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer: I am Ra. All is well. We are aware that you experience difficulties at this time, but they are not due to your lack of conscientiousness or dedication. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 60.1. Questioner: could you first give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Answer: I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Question 60.2. Questioner: it is my opinion that the best way for the instrument to improve her condition is through periods of meditation followed by periods of contemplation with respect to the condition and its improvement. Could you tell me if I am correct and expand on this? Answer: I am Ra. Meditation and contemplation are never untoward activities. However, this activity will in all probability, in our opinion, not significantly alter the predispositions of this instrument which cause the fundamental distortions which we, as well as you, have found disconcerting. Question 60.3. Questioner, can you tell me the best approach for altering, to a more acceptable condition, the distortions that the instrument is experiencing? Answer, I am Ra. There is some small amount of work which the instrument may do concerning its pre-incarnative decisions regarding service to the infinite creator in this experience. However, the decision to open without reservation to the offering of self when service is perceived is such a fundamental choice that it is not open to significant alteration, nor would we wish to interfere with the balancing process which is taking place with this particular entity. The wisdom and compassion being so balanced by this recapitulation of fourth density is helpful to this particular mind, body, spirit complex. It is not an entity much given to quibbling with the purity with which it carries out that which it feels it is best to do. We may say this due to the instrument's knowledge of itself which is clear upon this point. However, this very discussion may give rise to a slightly less fully unstopped dedication to service in anyone working so that the service may be continued over a greater period of your space-time. Question 60.4. Questioner, you are saying, then, that the physical distortions that the instrument experiences are part of a balancing process. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The physical distortions are a result of the instrument's not accepting fully the limitations placed prior to incarnation upon the activities of the entity once it had begun the working. The distortions caused by this working, which are inevitable given the plan chosen by this entity, a limitation and to a degree consonant with the amount of vital and physical energy expended, weariness, due to that which is the equivalent in this instrument of many, many hours of harsh physical labor. This is why we suggested the instrument's thoughts dwelling upon the possibility of its suggesting to its higher self the possibility of some slight reservation of energy at the working. This instrument at this time is quite open until all resources are quite exhausted. This is well if desired. However, it will, shall we say, shorten the number of workings in what you may call the long run. Question 60.5. Questioner, will spreading the workings out over greater intervals of time so that we have more time between workings help? Answer, I am Ra. This you have already done. It is not helpful to your group to become unbalanced by concern for one portion of the work above another. If this instrument is, in your judgment, capable and if the support group is functioning well, if all is harmonious and if the questions to be asked have been considered well, the working is well begun. To overly stress the condition of the instrument is as deleterious to the efficiency of this contact as the antithetical behavior was in your past. Question 60.6. Questioner, aside from the workings, I am concerned about the physical distortions of the instrument in the area of her hands and arms. Is there a, shall we say, mental exercise or something else that the instrument could work on to help to alleviate the extreme problems that she has at this time with her hands, etc.? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 60.7. Questioner, would this be an exercise of meditation and contemplation upon the alleviation of these problems? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 60.8. Questioner, what would she do then in order to alleviate these problems? Answer, I am Ra. As we have said, this instrument, feeling that it lacked compassion to balance wisdom, chose an incarnative experience whereby it was of necessity placed in situations of accepting self in the absence of other self's acceptance and the acceptance of other self without expecting a return or energy transfer. This is not an easy program for an incarnation but was deemed proper by this entity. This entity therefore must needs meditate and consciously, moment by moment, accept the self in its limitations which have been placed for the very purpose of bringing this entity to the precise tuning we are using. Further, having learned to radiate acceptance and love without expecting return, this entity now must balance this by learning to accept the gifts of love and acceptance of others which this instrument feels some discomfort in accepting. These two balanced workings will aid this entity in the release from the distortion called pain. The limitations are, to a great extent, fixed. Question 60.9. Questioner, is the fact that the instrument was already consciously aware of this the reason that the first distortion was not in force in making it impossible for you to communicate this to us? Answer, I am Ra. This is not only correct for this entity which has been consciously aware of these learned teachings for some of your years, but also true of each of the support group. The possibility of some of this information being offered was not there until this session. Question 60.10. Questioner, when you spoke in the last session of energizing shocks coming from the top of the pyramid, did you mean that these came at intervals rather than steadily? Answer, I am Ra. These energizing shocks come at discrete intervals but come very, very close together in a properly functioning pyramid shape. In one whose dimensions have gone awry, the energy will not be released with regularity or in quanta, as you may perhaps better understand our meaning. Question 60.11. Questioner, the next statement that I will make may or may not be enlightening to me in my investigation of the pyramid energy, but it has occurred to me that the effect of the so-called Bermuda Triangle could be possibly due to a large pyramid beneath the water which releases this third spiral in discrete and varying intervals. Entities or craft that are in the vicinity may change their space-time continuum in some way. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 60.12. Questioner, then this third spiral has an energizing effect that, if strong enough, will actually change the space-time continuum. Is there a use or value to this type of change? Answer, I am Ra. In the hands of one of fifth density or above, this particular energy may be tapped in order to communicate information, love, or light across what you would consider vast distances, but which with this energy may be considered trans-dimensional leaps. Also, there is the possibility of travel using this formation of energy. Question 60.13. Questioner, would this travel be the instantaneous type used primarily by sixth density entities, or is it the slingshot effect that you are talking about? Answer, I am Ra. The former effect is that of which we speak. You may note that as one learns the, shall we say, understandings or disciplines of the personality, each of these configurations of prana is available to the entity without the aid of this shape. One may view the pyramid at Giza as metaphysical training wheels. Question 60.14. Questioner, then is the large underwater pyramid off the Florida coast one of the balancing pyramids that Ra constructed, or did some other social memory complex construct it, and if so, which one? Answer, I am Ra. That pyramid of which you speak was one whose construction was aided by sixth density entities of a social memory complex working with Atlanteans prior to our working with the, as you call them, Egyptians. Question 60.15. Questioner, you mentioned working with one other group other than the Egyptians. Who were they? Answer, I am Ra. These entities were those of South America. We divided our forces to work within these two cultures. Question 60.16. Questioner, the pyramid shape then, as I understand it, was deemed by your social memory complex to be at that time of paramount importance as the physical training aid for spiritual development. At this particular time in the evolution of our planet, it seems that you place little or no emphasis on this shape. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. It is our honor duty to attempt to remove the distortions that the use of this shape has caused in the thinking of your peoples and in the activities of some of your entities. We do not deny that such shapes are efficacious, nor do we withhold the general gist of this efficacy. However, we wish to offer our understanding, limited though it is, that contrary to our naive beliefs many thousands of your years ago, the optimum shape for initiation does not exist. Let us expand upon this point. When we were aided by sixth density entities during our own third density experiences, we, being less bellicose in the extreme, found this teaching to be of help. In our naivety in third density, we had not developed the interrelationships of your barter or money system and power. We were, in fact, a more philosophical third density planet than your own, and our choices of polarity were much more centered about the, shall we say, understanding of sexual energy transfers and the appropriate relationships between self and other self. We spent a much larger portion of our space-time working with the unmanifested being. In this less complex atmosphere it was quite instructive to have this learned teaching device, and we benefited without the distortions we found occurring among your peoples. We have recorded these differences meticulously in the great record of creation, that such naivety shall not be necessary again. At this space-time we may best serve you, we believe, by stating that the pyramid for meditation, along with other rounded and arched or pointed circular shapes, is of help to you. However, it is our observation that due to the complexity of influences upon the unmanifested being at this space-time nexus among your planetary peoples, it is best that the progress of the mind-body-spirit complex take place without, as you call them, training aids, because when using a training aid an entity then takes upon itself the law of responsibility for the quickened or increased rate of learned teaching. If this greater understanding, if we may use this misnomer, is not put into practice in the moment-by-moment experience of the entity, then the usefulness of the training aid becomes negative. Question 60.17. Questioner: thank you. I don't know if this question will result in any useful information, but I feel that I must ask it. What was the Ark of the Covenant, and what was its use? Answer: I am Ra. The Ark of the Covenant was that place wherein those things most holy, according to the understanding of the one called Mish, were placed. The article placed therein has been called by your peoples 2 tablets called the 10 Commandments. There were not 2 tablets. There was one writing in scroll. This was placed along with the most carefully written accounts by various entities of their beliefs concerning the creation by the one Creator. This ark was designed to constitute the place from the priests, as you call those distorted towards the desire to serve their brothers, could draw their power and feel the presence of the one Creator. However, it is to be noted that this entire arrangement was designed, not by the one known to the Confederation as your way, but rather was designed by negative entities preferring this method of creating an elite called the Sons of Levi. Question 60.18. Questioner: was this a device for communication then? You also said that they drew power from it. What sort of power? How did this work? Answer: I am Ra. This was charged by means of the materials with which it was built being given an electromagnetic field. It became an object of power in this way, and, to those whose faith became that untarnished by unrighteousness or separation, this power designed for negativity became positive, and is so, to those truly in harmony with the experience of service, to this day. Thus the negative forces were partially successful, but the positively oriented Mish, as this entity was called, gave to your planetary peoples the possibility of a path to the one infinite Creator which is completely positive. This is in common with each of your orthodox religious systems, which have all become somewhat mixed in orientation, yet offer a pure path to the one Creator which is seen by the pure seeker. Question 60.19. Questioner: where is the Ark of the Covenant now? Where is it located? Answer: I am Ra. We refrain from answering this query due to the fact that it does still exist and is not that which we would infringe upon your peoples by locating. Question 60.20. Questioner: in trying to understand the creative energies, it has occurred to me that I really do not understand why unusable heat is generated as our Earth moves from 3rd into 4th density. I know it has to do with disharmony between the vibrations of 3rd and 4th density, but why this would show up as a physical heating within the Earth is beyond me. Can you enlighten me on that? Answer: I am Ra. The concepts are somewhat difficult to penetrate in your language. However, we shall attempt to speak to the subject. If an entity is not in harmony with its circumstances, it feels a burning within. The temperature of the physical vehicle does not yet rise, only the heat of the temper or the tears, as we may describe this disharmony. However, if an entity persists for a long period of your space-time in feeling this emotive heat and disharmony, the entire body complex will begin to resonate to this disharmony, and the disharmony will then show up as the cancer or other degenerative distortions from what you call health. When an entire planetary system of peoples and cultures repeatedly experiences disharmony on a great scale, the Earth under the feet of these entities shall begin to resonate with this disharmony. Due to the nature of the physical vehicle, disharmony shows up as a blockage of growth or an uncontrolled growth, since the primary function of a mind-body-spirit complex as bodily complex is growth and maintenance. In the case of your planet, the purpose of the planet is the maintenance of orbit and the proper location or orientation with regards to other cosmic influences. In order to have this occurring properly, the interior of your sphere is hot in your physical terms. Thus, instead of uncontrolled growth, you begin to experience uncontrolled heat and its expansive consequences. Question 60.21. Questioner, is the Earth solid all the way through from one side to the other? Answer, I am Ra. You may say that your sphere is of an honeycomb nature. The center is, however, solid if you would so call that which is molten. Question 60.22. Questioner, are there third density entities living in the honeycomb areas? Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This was at one time correct. This is not correct at this present space-time. Question 60.23. Questioner, are there any inner civilizations or entities living in these areas other than physically incarnate who do come and materialize on the Earth's surface at some times? Answer, I am Ra. As we have noted, there are some which do as you say. Further, there are some inner plane entities of this planet which prefer to do some materialization into third density visible in these areas. They are also bases, shall we say, in these areas of those from elsewhere, both positive and negative. They are abandoned cities. Question 60.24. Questioner, what are these bases used for by those from elsewhere? Answer, I am Ra. These bases are used for the work of materialization of needed equipment for communication with third density entities and for resting places for some equipment which you might call small craft. These are used for surveillance when it is requested by entities. Thus some of the, shall we say, teachers of the Confederation speak partially through these surveillance instruments along computerized lines, and when information is desired and those requesting it are of the proper vibratory level, the Confederation entity itself will then speak. Question 60.25. Questioner, I understand then that the Confederation entity needs communication equipment and craft to communicate with the third density incarnate entity requesting the information? Answer, I am Ra. This is incorrect. However, many of your peoples request the same basic information in enormous repetition, and for a social memory complex to speak ad infinitum about the need to meditate is a waste of the considerable abilities of such social memory complexes. Thus some entities have had approved by the Council of Saturn the placement and maintenance of these message givers for those whose needs are simple, thus reserving the abilities of the Confederation members for those already meditating and absorbing information which are then ready for additional information. Question 60.26. Questioner, there has been, for the past 30 years, a lot of information and a lot of confusion, and in fact, I would say that the law of confusion has been working overtime, to make a small joke, in bringing information for spiritual catalysis to groups requesting it, and we know that both the positively and the negatively oriented social memory complexes have been adding to this information as they can. This has led to a condition of apathy in a lot of cases with respect to the information. Many who are truly seeking have been thwarted by what I might call spiritual entropy in this information. Can you comment on this and the mechanisms of alleviating these problems? Answer, I am Ra. We can comment on this. Question 60.27. Questioner, only if you deem it of importance would I request a comment. If you deem it of no importance, we'll skip it. Answer, I am Ra. This information is significant to some degree as it bears upon our own mission at this time. We of the Confederation are at the call of those upon your planet. If the call, though sincere, is fairly low in consciousness of the, shall we say, system whereby spiritual evolution may be precipitated, then we may only offer that information useful to that particular caller. This is the basic difficulty. Entities receive the basic information about the original thought and the means, that is meditation and service to others, whereby this original thought may be obtained. Please note that as Confederation members we are speaking for positively oriented entities. We believe the Orion Group has precisely the same difficulty. Once this basic information is received, it is not put into practice in the heart and in the life experience, but instead rattles about within the mind, complex distortions as would a building block which has lost its place and simply rolls from side to side uselessly, yet still the entity calls. Therefore, the same basic information is repeated. Ultimately, the entity decides that it is weary of this repetitive information. However, if an entity puts into practice that which it is given, it will not find repetition except when needed. Question 60.28. Questioner: thank you. Are the chakras or bodily energy centers related to, or do they operate like the pyramid energy funnel? Answer: I am Ra. No. Question 60.29. Questioner: was there a purpose for mummification having to do with anything other than bodily burial? Answer: I am Ra. Much as we would like to speak to you of this distortion of our designs in constructing the pyramid, we can say very little, for the intent was quite mixed and the uses, though many felt them to be positive, were of a non-positive order of generation. We cannot speak upon this subject without infringement upon some basic energy balances between the positive and negative forces upon your planet. It may be said that those offering themselves felt they were offering themselves in service to others. Question 60.30. Questioner: what civilization was it that helped Ra using the pyramid shape while Ra was in third density? Answer: I am Ra. Your people have a fondness for the naming. These entities have begun their travel back to the Creator and are no longer experiencing time. Question 60.31. Questioner: the instrument wished to know, when using the pendulum in discovering energy centers, what the back and forth motion meant instead of the circular motion. Answer: I am Ra. This shall have to be the final question, although this entity is still providing us with energy. It is experiencing the distortion towards pain. The rotations having been discussed, we shall simply say that the weak back and forth motion indicates a partial blockage, although not a complete blockage. The strong back and forth motion indicates the reverse of blockage, which is overstimulation of a chakra or energy center which is occurring in order to attempt to balance some difficulty in body or mind complex activity. This condition is not helpful to the entity as it is unbalanced. Are there any brief queries before we leave this instrument? Question 60.32. Questioner: only is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer: I am Ra. Be merry, my friends. All is well and your conscientiousness is to be recommended. We leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Rejoice, then, and go forth in the peace and in the glory of the one infinite Creator. I am Ra. Adonai.